Hello, everyone. Welcome back to EP1. I hope you've had an excellent holiday. Chuseok and Gaetanjol and Hangul now. Well, tomorrow it is, at least. I hope everything is progressing well. I've had some chances to look at your lessons, and they're very encouraging. And I'll be getting your feedback back to you, your evaluations soon, as soon as I can. My whole weekend is scheduled away for that very purpose. So this is now the halfway point, and things are going quite well. So we've discussed the syllables and stress and linking of pronunciation. Now we're going to go kind of backwards in a way. We're going to go back to the building blocks of pronunciation, the phenoms. And we're talking about the sounds. And we're going to talk about the vowels and diphthongs and consonant sounds of the English language for the rest of the semester. But before that, let's do a quick review of what we've done so far and take a quick look at feedback and giving meaningful feedback. This is quite important because it's part of our duties as teachers, and it's part of, how should I say, being a grown-up is giving meaningful feedback to our juniors, but also our colleagues as well. And it's a skill that we need to develop. Things aren't just fun or exciting. We need to explain what's fun and what's exciting. So let's watch this short video about meaningful feedback. This is a brief talk about giving meaningful feedback, its importance, what it is, and how we can do it, and how to do it as well. Going on in the future for the rest of the semester, I'm going to be asking you to provide meaningful feedback, not just feedback, but meaningful feedback to each other and eventually to me as well. And this is excellent practice because you're going to have to do this for students as well in the future. And it's something you'll be learning about more in the as your academic careers go on, but also it's a good skill to start practicing. So let's get in. So what is it? So feedback to students can take on many different forms. This can be simple suggestions, edits on their writing, comments on final submissions. The grades is a fine kind of feedback as well. Just comments on oral presentations. So to help students make the most productive use of feedback, we need to think about the timing of the assignments and where it is in the semester, in the course schedule. And we'll need to also bear in mind the tone of our feedback and how to give feedback so the students can benefit the most from the comments. That's the important thing. The comments for students, or for anyone for that matter, are meant to help them be better for next time, so they know what they're doing well and what they're not doing so well, and where they're strong and where they're a bit weaker. So this is why it's important to give meaningful, helpful feedback, and so that people can improve. If they don't know what they did right or wrong, how can they get better? They might be exercising or working on wrong parts of their skills, or they might be strengthening weaknesses, strengthening unhealthy skills. To provide a bit of context, when I first started teaching, I taught at a middle school in Seoul, and for the first semester, I had very bad feedback. What that means was the feedback I got was always good job, good job, good job, good job, good job. And that meant nothing. I wasn't doing a good job. I was having a very hard time, but there was no feedback for it, and everything, there was no help. And some people say, well, it's not their job. It's other teachers are busy. But when you're the head teacher of a department, it is your job. And that was who was giving the feedback, and he was, useless as that in that regard. So when we say talk about giving feedback, it's there to help you get better and to help make a stronger product. So, providing meaningful feedback helps students move beyond focusing just on grades. Goes back to my philosophy on grading. If a student scores 100 out of 100, they're perfect. How can they be better? And this is a problem I have with grade inflation, in that it is an inaccurate means of giving feedback. If you get a 90 on your assignment, you might think, wow, that's great. I did everything perfect. But probably not. And even then, maybe with how grade curves can happen, is that you might have done very well, but the curve required by the school or university means that you got a C on it instead of what would have otherwise been an A. This is where feedback actually comes in much better. And so, also, one person's 95 is a different person's 95, especially when we're talking about different teachers, different evaluators. So, providing feedback provides personalized evaluation, specific information on their performance and their learning. So, also feedback should be what we call constructive, positive reinforcement. We want to encourage the good and try to make them build up their skills. I want you to build up your presentation skills, your English skills, your teaching skills. And so, just saying, for example, this is bad and you should feel bad, that's not helpful feedback. Because how was it bad? Well, if I go into details about what parts are weak and what parts you can work on, that helps you get better for next time. And so when I provide you with feedback on your assignments, on your projects, it's going to be a bit more in depth. And I hope you take the time to read it, if I'm taking the time to write it especially, and not just looking at the number grade, the letter grade, so to speak. It also helps to make our feedback as specific as possible. We need to avoid generalities, even if it's real easy to do them, especially when we're grading a lot of assignments, a lot of projects. So just saying, nice work, or unclear, or huh, or wow, that doesn't help the student understand what they did correct, what was so good about it. So it also can create a feeling that the evaluator, the teacher, didn't really read it or take a close look at it, which, if you spend hours preparing something, hours making something, then you want the person to look at it to spend some time and actually look at it. So I've had that with my academic career, but I've also been on the other side when, I haven't scheduled the assignments correctly or as efficiently as I could have, and I have 100 lessons to evaluate in 3 days, and you're just like, you start. Generalities save time, but they don't provide helpful feedback to students. Meaningful feedback is also formative. It helps students and teachers and everyone understand the learning progress and focus on improvement. In your writing classes, hopefully the instructor is able to take time and see your first draft, second draft, third draft, so they can help provide you feedback and get better before the final assignment is due. And this is also something that's a bit difficult this semester, but we're going to try it out a bit later. But when we were in class together, I could walk around and see how you're doing, what you're talking about, and provide immediate feedback on your ideas or directions that you're going with, and the ideas that you had, and what I thought was workable and a good idea, and what was maybe not a good idea. So even if so, there's mid-progress feedback. Then of course there's feedback on the final project, the summative assignment, such as, final essays and tests. So the feedback provided then, even if the test is over, the feedback you give should be able to be carried on in the future. What they learn here, that you should be able to take with you next time. So it's something to bear in mind of how, if you or the student makes a mistake, what was the mistake? And providing feedback, try to help the student identify what the mistake is, what they did wrong, and help them avoid that same mistake in the future, what they can do. This one I have a problem with. To be helpful, feedback needs to be timely. As in, this is very true with adults as well. It's most effective if we get feedback on our projects, on our work, earlier rather than later. It's something we need to bear in mind while it's still fresh. So you submitted your video lessons in the past couple of weeks, and I need to give you your feedback soon. So this weekend, as of the time of this recording, that's what I'm going to do. And usually, there's no hard set thing about this, but within 3 weeks of the student giving the assignment, you need to have feedback ready for them. But if they're younger students, then by nature, their projects will be a bit less complicated, so that will be easier. But if you're talking 5-page essays or 10-page essays, then it takes time to read, and adults also need to understand that. Okay, this one, if we're talking about handwritten feedback, which we don't have now with this semester, but in the past you have had, it needs to be legible. The student needs to be able to read what we're saying. But also it needs to use constructive tone. We need to use, students should be able to read and understand the feedback, but it also needs to be building them up. If something is too negative, we often get defensive or we ignore it. So if we use constructive language to help the student try to get better, then they might actually take heed of the advice. Back when I was teaching elementary school, I got to read and grade students' journals, and at first I was working very hard. I was fixing spellings, and I was fixing grammar and writing comments, but a lot of students, most students, never actually corrected their spelling. They never did. One girl, very nice girl, she spelled my name, John, John. She's always spelled it Jhon. And every time, because she wrote her journals like letters to me. She said, "Dear John teacher." She's very nice. She always spelled it Jhon. And every time, every week, I corrected her spelling John. She never, not once, spelled my name correctly. So much so, I thought she meant to, but she didn't. She just did not pay attention to the correction. She wasn't listening to the feedback. And so that's something that students do. That happens. It absolutely happens. And it doesn't feel good to spend time to provide corrections, and those corrections are ignored for whatever reasons. So it's something that we need to be aware of. So we need to be aware of how we're giving the feedback, and also think about, even if you write something down, would you have talked to that person the same way as you write it? Sometimes we use much briefer language, fewer words in our written evaluations, our written feedback, than in our spoken feedback. And that can come off in very overly direct, overly confrontational, overly scolding, which sometimes adults don't respond to. So giving feedback, think of it as you're starting a conversation. And this is a one-way transmission from you to the students. But another thing that we're going to do as well is self-reflection, self-evaluations. How did you do? What was good? What was bad? And this is very helpful in getting students and workers to think about their own work instead of, it's good to be able to think after assignment what was easy, what was difficult, what did you enjoy doing, what did you not enjoy doing, and how can you improve for the future. These are all helpful for us. So when we talk about giving helpful feedback, we need to be specific to our students about what they did right and what you enjoyed. But when we give constructive feedback, we also need to build them up. That's the job of a teacher, is to build up students from foundations and build their knowledge and skills up. We don't need to tear down. That's somebody else's job. Something that we have some confusion with sometimes. Feedback is not the same as just rewriting their essay or providing lots of edits. We're there to evaluate. We're not editors. Editor is a paid position in order to fix someone's writing. A copy editor is there to fix spelling and typos. It's an actual job that newspapers and book companies used to have. They don't have anymore. It's a problem. So when we give feedback, it helps if we explain what the problems are, what problems they have in their writing or their speaking, identify the problems, and then how the student can work to fix them. Don't just fix the problem with the red pen, because then the student isn't learning, and maybe they're not understanding that what they're doing is a problem, that it's incorrect, and that it's a fixable problem. Yeah. Then, of course, it helps, as always, to tailor, to customize our feedback for the assignment. If it's a video lesson, then evaluating the student's writing is less important than their speaking. And think about if something's a creative effort versus a rote memorization test, then perhaps there's we can be flexible in how we give feedback. So it's something that we need to bear in mind about what kind of feedback we give based on what kind of work is being done. So with your video lessons that you just had, it's something that feedback, I'm going to be providing a lot more feedback on your on-camera personas, your demeanor, how you act on camera. And this is something that would not come out through a written lesson plan by itself, because I can't evaluate that. So that's something for that. All right. Also, this is quite helpful if you have a long-term class. If you notice patterns in the kind of feedback you're giving, if you see more than one, not just more than one, if you see a third or a third of the students or half the students you're giving the same feedback, they have the same points of weakness, then that tells us, the teacher, that there's a group problem, that they are misunderstanding or not understanding, or they have no introduction to an idea that they should or that you should have introduced to them before. So it's something helpful to use the feedback to inform your future lessons. If there's something that you see a common problem with your students' work, then you need to fix that, or try to fix it as best we can in future lessons. You can address that, and that's part of the organic nature of teaching. Not all students are the same. Classes have their own personalities, students have their own personalities, and not everyone shows up knowing the same things. And we don't, just looking at a student, we don't know that. Through feedback, we can figure it out. And also, this is a pitfall, so to speak. This is for you. You can't spend too much time providing feedback for students. Otherwise, you don't have time for other things. And you have a lot of other things to do. You have to prepare other lessons. You have to have meetings and all those wonderful things. And you have to have a life as well. So you'll need to make guidelines for yourself on how you will provide feedback. Are you going to write a one-page essay like Evergreen State University? That's how they provide feedback. There's no grades at that school, but for every semester, every student, the professor writes a short essay. Oh my goodness, a short essay about their performance in the class, and that's really nice. But it's hard if that student wants to go to a different school. So it's something. Then also something that is important, we need to try to be fair. It's not fair to spend 2 hours on one student's work and then 1 minute on another student's. That's not fair to the student and to either student, really. So you might need to make a cap on what's the maximum number of suggestions or areas that you can give advice on. It might be 5 or 7 or just 2, depending on the number of students and the number of assignments that you need to grade. This one I had problems with. If you have multiple classes and the classes are doing similar or the same assignments, then you need to stagger your due dates to give you enough time to realistically provide feedback and evaluation for your students' work. This is because you need to provide quality feedback. And it's much easier to think of it if you need to provide quality feedback for 30 students in 1 week versus providing quality feedback for 150 students in 1 week. And that's a lot, and it's hard. So if you can, try to stagger when things are due to give you enough time to actually fairly and provide quality feedback for your students. So with all that, those are reasons for giving, why I say quality feedback, specific information about what the students are doing right, what you liked in their work, and areas that they can improve upon. And especially if they're critically misunderstanding some concept, you can briefly explain what they're misunderstanding in your feedback. And that can also inform your future lessons. So this semester, you're going to be providing feedback to your classmates' videos, but we'll get into that more detail in another segment. But this semester, you're going to be focused on the positive, giving positive feedback, what they did right or what you thought was a neat idea. And you're going to be focused on the teaching parts, the activities of the lessons. Audio and video quality, that's not important for you. And because not everyone has access to the same cameras, not everyone has access to the same software or microphones. And so that's something that you shouldn't worry about. So when you give feedback to each other, I want you to be positive and build each other up. It's my job to be more constructive. And if I see errors or mistakes, it's my job to identify and help you. Your job for giving feedback to each other is to be positive, what you liked about each other's videos. But here's the thing. Give specific feedback, not just saying, it's fun, it's interesting, it's good for students. That doesn't help anyone. You need to think, how was it fun? What was good about it? And if you liked the song, what was good about the song? What was good about the activity? And we'll get more and more into this in another segment, but it's something that I think is an excellent practice for us and is an excellent opportunity for us as well. And with that, let's get back into it. Let's talk about your peer review practice. Now, earlier I asked you to go onto Discord. I gave you each an invitation link for Discord. I asked you to join, and we have a server that I've made for this purpose. You're going to be peer reviewing each other's videos, your lessons. Not all of the videos, you're not going to see all of them, but some of them. You're going to work in groups. Now, we look at the screen. Oops, there we go. You'll notice on our Discord, now there's 11 members right now, technically. We'll need more, but we'll sort that out. Each of you is going to be in a group, and each group will have 3 to 4 students, and you're going to watch 3 or 4 different video lessons and provide feedback on that. So let's talk about that assignment and what your job is. Now, your job in that is to provide meaningful, positive feedback for each other. So in this way, we're going to use Discord, the video game chatting app, to help us, because one, it's a private closed garden, and similar to how Flipgrid is, only people with the invitation link can go onto the server, and then depending on which group you're in and which class you're in, you'll have different permissions to go into and chat in different rooms. So in your group chat room, only you and your group members and me will be able to see, and that's quite important. Now, in the before times when we had in-person classes, we had this process in class where we could provide meaningful feedback to each other in person, but we can't. And it is an important part of learning, of developing, and of the class itself. So I'm trying to simulate this process as best we can, and this is one way we're trying it. So you don't need to install Discord on your computer. There is a phone application that you can use. You can also use it in your browser, internet browser. That will work just fine, but you do need to use that invitation link. When you join your server, please your nickname for that server, for our server, it needs to be your name. And also, please make sure you include what class you're in. Now, I only have one EP1 class, but I have 2 EP2 classes. And so if you look at the screen, you can see I give an example of Kim Gil-dong, EP2, and then what their major is. And that will help you and me keep things sorted, especially when I need to grant different permissions about who can go into what room. I need to go by username and figure that out. So in Discord, you'll be able to chat with your group and discuss the different video lessons and talk about them. Now, Korean is your natural language, and so it is natural for you to chat to each other in Korean. If you can use English, that's better. Your final submission, your final feedback form, that will be in English. But when you're just talking to each other, just chatting, I believe it's unproductive to demand English in such a context. But I do ask that you use Discord for this conversation, because I do need records of it, because this is a class activity, and I need to be able to see and pop in to the different chat rooms and see how you're doing and get progress checks and give feedback on your feedback progress. That sounds a bit strange, but that's what I did in class, as in students would be in different groups, and I would walk around and talk to each group about how they're doing, what they're doing, and give constructive feedback on what I think was working and where else they could focus their efforts and attention. So again, we're trying to simulate this environment as best we can. So hopefully it all works, but we'll see how it goes. There'll be more details on eClass as we go along, so please make sure we check that out as well. Mentioned before, you're going to view and provide feedback for 3 or 4 different students depending on the number of people in your group. I've randomized the groups, so that should work. You're going to answer several questions about their lesson, and these lessons are there to help you guide your group's efforts in providing feedback. And this is quite important. Your feedback for this is going to be positive. Negative feedback is my job. Constructive feedback will be my job. You need to say what they did well. What good things did they do? There'll be a time for negative feedback, for constructive feedback, but now is not that time. So you and your group, you're going to answer the following questions for each video lesson. 1. How did the lesson achieve its objectives? This is a basic comprehension question to make sure that you watched the lesson. What did they do to achieve this lesson, to achieve the objectives of the lesson? And usually, the main method will be shown out through here. And then, the next section, What was good about each phase of the lesson? The introduction, the pre-teaching, the song, the activity, the review and conclusion. What did they do well there? What was nice about it? So that's what you'll need to talk. And you can't just say it's fun, it was fun, it was fun, it was interesting. That means nothing. Those words mean nothing. I want you to give a little more detail. If something was fun, what was fun? And what was fun about it? If you try to explain that. If you thought the introduction was interesting, what made it interesting? Okay. And then finally, what did the teacher do well overall in their presentation? So was there some consistent goodness throughout the video lesson that you liked? Some method, some gimmick, something that they did that you enjoyed throughout the entire lesson? That's what we're going to focus on for this mini project, so to speak. And so we'll have that. There'll be a submission process, and that will be on eClass. So that should be all quite good. If you have any questions, of course, and I expect questions, we'll have them eClass, and hopefully you can join Discord and have no problems there either. Pause.